Hello, and thank you for choosing to watch this video about Invest York Road. This video exists to help keep the community informed, engaged, and connected to Invest York Road. This is a project that is really of, by, and for the community, and we want everyone to be involved. So, in order to make that happen, we are trying to provide everyone in the community with a baseline of knowledge to empower them to start participating if they haven't already, or deepen their participation if they have already connected with Invest York Road in some way. So on the screen, you can see the Invest York Road website. And at that website, you can find more general information about the project, news and updates about the current status of Invest York Road, and different ways to connect and be involved. There's also a sign up form for free financial and investment education classes that we run. So check all that out and please get connected and get involved in whatever way you would like. Before we get started, I want to acknowledge Invest York Road's major partners, sponsors, and collaborators, which you can see on the screen here. This is an ever evolving list. So if we have new ones, they might not show up here quite yet. But these are people and organizations who have helped get the project to the place where it is now. So we are very grateful for their support and could not have accomplished everything that we have without them. So thank you very much to everyone you see on the screen there. This is a breakdown of the three sections that we will cover today. There will not be a Q&A because you're watching this video, but on our website, there is a detailed frequently asked questions or FAQ section where you can see the answers to a really wide range of questions that have come up in these kind of presentations and in our discussions with people about Invest York Road. So go there if this presentation leaves you with some additional questions or you want to learn more. And if your questions are not answered on that FAQ, then please feel free to reach out to us through the contact form that you can also find on the website. Let's start with the history of Invest York Road. This is just a very abbreviated sense of where this project has come from. Now, for starters, we often talk about the York Road corridor when we talk about Invest York Road. And when we say that, we mean the neighborhoods that surround York Road, which is in the northern part of Baltimore City, between 39th Street and the Baltimore County line. And we'll see a map of that area later that is more specific about what that area is. And this part of the city has a long history of disinvestment and decline, but there have always been motivated groups of community members who care deeply about the corridor and want to improve quality of life for all neighbors on both sides of York Road. The conditions for this Invest York Road project started to develop years ago when community members came together from 2012 to 2014 as the York Corridor Collective to create the York Road Corridor Action Plan. And this plan involves a very thorough shared vision for the future of the area. And it's a great plan, but a major obstacle to implementing the plan has always been the lack of local control over commercial real estate. By commercial real estate, we mean business properties. And this lack of local control results in absentee ownership, blight, problem businesses, and other issues, all of which can reduce the local quality of life. In response to these challenges, the Invest York Road project began in early 2019 in the Business Engagement Committee of the York Road Partnership, which is also known as YRP. YRP is a network of neighborhood associations, individuals, business organizations, faith groups, and others in the community who work to improve the York Road corridor. After years of frustration around this lack of local control of commercial properties, YRP started looking at creative solutions. They decided to pursue a community ownership strategy, which was inspired by examples from other cities that served as models for Invest York Road. And there's a lot of different flavors to this kind of community ownership strategy. But the basic idea is maybe no individual can buy, renovate, and lease all these commercial properties on their own, but as a community, we can do it together. And since that idea took root, locals have been planning, researching, getting legal advice, getting startup funding, making and revising plans, designing and launching the financial education program that I mentioned earlier, meeting weekly to move the project forward, looking at properties, and building a new organization to make Invest York Road a reality. So that was a brief history of the project. And the next section will go over the basic concept of Invest York Road, which is this. We start with an entity that is called Invest York Road. And we'll talk more in the next section about exactly what that entity is and how it works. But for now, just think of it as the central piece of this operation. We then have people in the community who are interested in investing in improving the York Road corridor. We provide the free financial and investment literacy classes so that everyone has access to the information they need to make an informed decision about whether or not to participate. And those community members who are interested in participating then make an investment into the project, a financial investment into the project. And it's important to note here that we are designing this so that almost anyone can participate. Small dollar investments will be welcomed and encouraged. And once all those community investments, small and large, have been assembled, they can be paired with outside investment, like grants from government agencies, program related investments from foundations, or even traditional investments from larger investors. That community investment could also be paired with a traditional commercial real estate loan, like a commercial mortgage, if needed. And all that money is put together to purchase a property, which is fixed up as needed and filled with tenants that support community goals. Once that property is generating enough rental income to pay its bills and make a profit, extra proceeds are returned to community investors in the form of dividend payments. And this process can then repeat over and over again with more community members investing in Invest York Road, more properties being brought into community ownership, and more dividends being returned to those community investors. So the Invest York Road approach is both a transformational community economic development effort that improves the corridor itself by improving these commercial properties, and also a wealth building opportunity for those community investors. Now, I've been using the word community a lot, and before we go any further, I want to define what we mean when we say community. When we say community, this is what we mean on the left. The York Road community includes our friends and neighbors who live, work, or own a business in the York Road corridor. And when we say the York Road corridor, we mean the neighborhoods shown on the map on the right, which are on either side of York Road from 39th Street in the south to the county line in the north. And as you will learn in the next section, these definitions are important because they determine who can participate in Invest York Road's decision-making process, who gets to sort of control the path that Invest York Road goes down in the organization. That concludes the concept section. Now let's talk about the actual structure of Invest York Road itself. What is it and how does it work? To start with, there is a nonprofit organization at the center of Invest York Road. And as many of you may know, nonprofits must have a mission or some kind of charitable purpose. They can make money and pay good salaries, but everything they do has to serve their operations and mission. There are no owners to pocket the extra revenue or the profit. All of that profit has to be put back into the work and cannot go to benefit individual owners like a business does, because again, a nonprofit does not have owners. Now, this nonprofit is the entity that preserves the mission of the organization, sets the vision, establishes goals, makes the decisions, and so forth for Invest York Road. We'll talk about the governance of this organization shortly, but the bottom line is it is controlled by and accountable to the community. And the benefit of having a nonprofit organization at the center of this project is the ability to receive grants, donations, and other kinds of funding that can only go to nonprofits and not to for profit businesses. Once it's up and running, the nonprofit will then identify a property that's a good fit, is financially viable, and will also help achieve the organization's community development goals. A for profit subsidiary of the nonprofit is then created. And this is a holding company that will actually be the entity that purchases the properties. And this may sound weird or sketchy, but it is totally legal and normal for a nonprofit to create a for profit subsidiary. It can absolutely be done in a completely above board legal way. And once that for profit entity is created, community members will then buy shares in that holding company, that for profit entity. This is where the community investment actually goes. And as we said earlier, there's no owners of a nonprofit. You can't own shares in a nonprofit. So investing in this for profit holding company is a way to allow for community investors to actually own shares of this enterprise. And that for profit subsidiary, the holding company, is then the entity that purchases the property. And each additional property purchased by Invest York Road will go under that same holding company. And for each property purchased, more shares in the holding company will be sold to the community in exchange for that community investment. Some other important things to know about this whole process is that the ownership shares purchased by community investors entitle the owners to financial returns, but control of the property and decisions about the property are made by the nonprofit organization. Investors are not responsible for the day to day operation of the properties. The properties will be managed by the nonprofit. And this raises the question of how exactly the nonprofit will be controlled. And the answer is this: anyone who invests in an Invest York Road property and who is also a community member will be eligible to vote on and run for the nonprofit's board of directors. People from outside the community can invest and they can get financial returns, they can get dividends, but only people in the community, based on the definitions we discussed earlier about what the community is, people who live, own a business, or work in those neighborhoods on that map, only those people who are in the community who also invest are eligible to be on the board of directors or vote for the board of directors. And a nonprofit's board of directors is the organization's ultimate authority. It makes big picture decisions, decides a strategy, makes sure the organization is staying true to its purpose, hires staff, and is just generally responsible for keeping the organization on course. So, by requiring that board members be both investors and members of the community, Invest York Road is ensuring that the organization and its decisions will always be locally controlled. Also, all investors who live in the community have the same voting power for the board of directors. It doesn't matter if you invest $10 or $10,000, your power in the organization is the same. It is one investor, one vote. That ends the structure section. As I said earlier, if we were at a live session, we'd be doing Q&A right now, but we're not. So again, I will refer you to the website, which is www.investyorkroad.org, where you can sign up for those free financial education classes, view that detailed FAQ that has tons of more information about the project. And like I said, reach out through the contact link if you have any questions that are not answered on that frequently asked questions page. There's also a news blog on the website where we post monthly status updates and reports about the project. So you can always check there to see the latest on what's happening with Invest York Road. And I really want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video. As I said at the top, this is your project. This is of, by, and for the community. And we really hope that you will continue to connect and get involved and be a part of making Invest York Road more of a success. Thank you so much for your time.